Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1133, 1133, Sunday, May the 17th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, we're going to go ahead and cover the news of the day. A very good Spygate, some very good information on Spygate regarding what may have been in that briefcase that Rick Grinnell delivered to Attorney General Barr last week. And then we'll name the dumbass of the week. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so if most of you have probably heard by now, another swamp creature has been drugged from the swamp and beached and thrown out on his ass. Yes, that's right. Trump has now fired the Deep State Department's Attorney General, Steve Linick, L-I-N-I-C-K, Linick. Now, the general explanation for Trump is pretty much the same as he gave for the last Inspector General that he fired, and that is that he lost confidence in him. And if you look into Mr. Linick, you will find that he is a deep stater. He's involved in everything, but most specifically, he seemed to have quite a few interactions with some of the key players in the Ukraine hoax, which of course was used at the attempt at impeachment. So it's taking some time to root out the deep state swamp dwellers, but day by day the work is being done. These people are being rooted out and tossed out on their ass. And now Mr. Linick will join the others of deep state swamp creatures pulled from the swamp. And that's important to get rid of these inspector generals. They can be very meddlesome and troublesome, especially around election time, if you know what I mean. Now, as a result of the story that we talked about a day or two ago regarding Ambassador Yovanovitch, and we detailed how she lied her ass off in the hearings about her contacts with Burisma and her associations with people who have close associations with Burisma, including a personal meeting with a Burisma senior official 45 days before the hearings. We now have David Bossie of Citizens United, who has a pretty powerful voice. Citizens United being probably one of the most ambitious, let's say, activist groups on the right. And of course, David Bossie is a very good man, staunch defender of the president, and he's another guy that you would kind of like to see in the administration. He's kind of like a Rick Grinnell type guy. If you put him anywhere and tell him to get to work, draining the swamp, he'll get it done. So now David Bossie is now calling for criminal charges to be filed against Yovanovitch. At the very least, she should be called back to Congress. Now, certainly she won't be called back by the bug-eyed fool in the House, but Graham, or it will likely be Ron Johnson, who will call her in because it's his committee that will be starting their Burisma hearings next month. And so with this new information coming out, I would think that Ms. Yovanovitch might be someone who Mr. Johnson would like to talk to. See if she lies to him as well, now that we know the facts. If you have not read that story, you can go over to justthenews.com, John Solomon's site, and you can read the full story. There's a lot of details in there and a lot of context. If that's something that's interesting to you, I recommend you go read the article. But clearly she lied under oath, and she needs to be brought to justice. She's a real slimeball, this Yovanovitch. Don't know how many of you have seen the video clip of Yovanovitch after she gave her speech, after she gave her hit piece on Trump at the hearings and lied her ass off. Then she went to a local jazz club there in Washington, walked in where they already had a party waiting for her, and she walked in and she was the celebrated guest. Everybody coming up to her and thanking her for what she did. Why would someone want to thank you just because you testified to Congress about some issue? Well, they wouldn't. They would only welcome you as a hero if you did something else. Like give a testimony that would damage the president. Now, we all know she hated him. We all know she told foreign governments not to pay attention to him because they were going to get rid of him. She's got a lot of questions to answer. Yes, she does. And I certainly hope that Ron Johnson calls her in and takes her to task over her lies. And I hope they give her a criminal referral. And I hope the Attorney General or whoever at the Department of Injustice will lay those indictments on her. We have got to start indicting Democrats who lie to Congress as well, instead of just Republicans. That's what they're going for Roger Stone for. Lying to Congress under oath. That's what she did, and Clapper did, and Brennan did, and Comey did, and McCabe did, and Strzok did, and Page did, and a whole bunch of others. Now, this information was known at the time when Yovanovitch testified. But the way that the bug-eyed fool set up that little hearing, he set up the hearing so Yovanovitch could come in and put out her propaganda and do her hit job on Trump. But Schiff would not allow the Republicans to have a witness or two come in and challenge what she said. Because they had 2 or 3 people who could have walked right in and challenged everything that Yovanovitch said. But Schiff would not allow them to testify. Only her. Because it was a rigged deal, which we all know. That's why we can't play pussyfoot with these people. That's why we got to hammer these people. You cannot play games with these people. You cannot. The only thing you can do with these people is defeat them. And you have to go for the jugular. You have to have the killer instinct. They do. If the situation was reversed, what do you think they would do? We have way too many people on our side who have no spine. That's the problem. That's how we got here. Remember when Lindsey Graham wanted to introduce a bill in the Senate to protect Mueller? Remember when Trey Gowdy told us that the FBI was doing exactly what the American people would want them to do, conducting the investigation into Trump? Yeah, I remember. These guys are frauds. Now, Rick Grinnell's not a fraud. Neither is David Bossie. Nor is Trump. And I don't think Barr's a fraud either. He's got a difficult position he's in, but I don't think he's a fraud. And I certainly am praying that Durham is not a fraud. And from everything I can tell, he's not. But we'll know soon enough. I'm sure many of you got a good chuckle out of this story yesterday about this interview that Mr. Potato Head did, John Brennan, where he said he would welcome the chance to talk to investigators. He has nothing to hide. He would welcome the chance to talk to investigators, nothing to hide. He will show up with 4 lawyers, and he won't say anything that might admit his wrongdoing. He will lie when he has to. He will say nothing when he can, and if he's forced to talk, he'll blame it on someone else. Maybe that's why Brennan wants to talk to Durham's investigators. He wants to go blame the FBI. He wants to go blame Comey and McCabe and Strzok. Try to get himself out from underneath of it. Because he knows he's a primary target. But he's a pathological liar. Pathological liar. Some of it is propaganda. Some of it is psychological warfare. I mean, Brennan operates in this same reality as a lot of these other people. It's a false reality they're living in now. But it's that they are untouchable. And all they have to do is go on to a media appearance and say something, and they think it'll pass muster because they'll never be called on it. That's why he believes he can go say something. Believe me, when Durham feels the need to interview Brennan, and I don't think he may ever interview Brennan until he charges him. Brennan wants to tell a story, let him say it in front of a judge and a jury. That's the way I would play it if I were Durham. Now, if Brennan has decided to flip, but generally in a case like that, Durham's going to say, okay, well, have your attorneys send me a letter telling me exactly what you're willing to talk about or come clean on. Put it in writing, and I'll give you a response in writing, and maybe we can have a chat. Otherwise, I have no interest in talking to Mr. Potato Head. I don't need to. I've got the goods on him. And he'll show up here with 4 lawyers, and they'll advise him not to answer any questions that would incriminate him. Now, maybe again he wants to flip on his buddies. I don't know. I would be worried about it at this point. I don't think Durham needs to talk to Brennan. And the guy lies constantly. Why would Brennan believe anything he says? Yeah, I would. This is just a giggler. It's a chuckler. There's really nothing more to make about it. That's all it is. Now, before I get into going through Dumbass of the Week, I wanted to comment on an article by a former naval intelligence officer who has a website called Liberty Unyielding. Liberty Unyielding. Her name is J.E. Dyer. And I've referred to J.E. Dyer's articles on numerous occasions in previous TowerGate videos and have cited quite a bit of her evidence on my TowerGate timeline. But this most recent story really caught my attention because it's really good. If you want, I highly advise you go over to the website Liberty Unyielding and read the story. There's 2 or 3 good ones posted up there right now about Spygate, which is, she focuses mostly on that. And she's a former naval intelligence officer. So the reason I like reading her stuff is because she seems to have a really good knowledge of the actual inner workings at the NSA and other government bureaucracies in the intelligence business. She seems to really understand the inner workings of things. So whenever you read an article by her, you don't get the typical headline fluff, sort of, bold print headlines. What you get with J.W. Dyer, or J.E. Dyer, is you get very in-depth analysis of the inner workings of a subject. So it's not always easy stuff to talk about in a video or something. It's almost like you got to read the stuff. It's kind of detailed and involved. But as best I can, I'm going to try to give just a general overview of her article, why it appealed to me and why I'm talking about it. And then you can go over and read the actual details of the article. And there's a follow-up article now as well to that original article. So Liberty Unyielding, and just go to that site and you'll see the various stories and you'll see the ones that you want to read. Now, what caught my eye about this article here, previous to her latest article, which is a follow-up, but the previous one that came out, I guess, last week, the 15th, I think it was, the 14th maybe, and she's talking about something that I noticed too, which is that we saw that video clip, or the still pic, whichever you saw, of Rick Grinnell with that satchel walking over into Barr's office. And you can clearly see this is a fairly large satchel. And you can see his arm is completely straight down. And you can see the satchel appears to be, it's not a thin little satchel. It's pretty thick. And it's pretty big. Bigger than a standard briefcase. So I'm thinking, wow, there must be thousands and thousands of documents in there. We're about to get a major document release. And then, of course, the next day we get nothing. The next day there's conversation, oh, well, it's the names of people who unmasked Flynn, but the Justice Department says it's not up to them to release it, it's up to the ODNI. So there was like 24 hours of confusion. But then the following day, they did release 3 pages. Those 3 pages, of course, were given to Johnson and Grassley, and they released them to Catherine Herridge, who took a screenshot of them and put them on her Twitter. And that's when we all first saw it. And then everyone picked it up from there. So the first thing I saw when I saw Grinnell with that large satchel of documents, I thought, wow, man, that's a lot of documents he's delivering, But we only got 3. We only saw 3. So I was very curious, and I thought, okay, well, all they released is 3 documents, and supposedly everything else we're hearing they're not going to release because of various reasons. And so I'm thinking, well, okay, so obviously out of all those, must have been thousands of pages based on the size of the satchel, we got 3 documents. There must be a lot more there. What could be there? And so this is what J.E. Dyer's article attempts to do, is to help explain what very likely is in those other documents are that were in that satchel that Rick Grinnell delivered to Attorney General Barr. So I'm going to give you just the bullet points, and then I'll go through and explain them in just a few short minutes I have. So her article deals with a group of people she calls the keyboard warriors, who are basically NSC staff. National Security Council. And of course, we've learned a lot about the National Security Council and how corrupt they are over the past year or so, particularly since the Ukraine hoax popped up. She talks about the 702 queries, which exploded between 2012 and 2016, going up by as much as 400%. And of course, we all know from the Judge Collier 99-page FISA court document where we know that they black out the names of 3 contractors. We know it's 3 because there's a comma between them. That comes into play in this article. She talks about there being many contractors, not just those 3. She talks about this TAC, which is, of course, something that we have talked about quite a few times here. TAC is, of course, the Analysis Corporation, and it's an organization which is a contractor for the government, mostly intelligence. And, of course, John Brennan, Mr. Potato Head, was the president of that organization from 2005 to 2009. And once he became CIA director, prior to that, even when he was Obama's terrorism czar, he funneled a lot of money, billions of dollars in government contracts to his old firm where he was the president there called TAC. They come into play as well in the story. So basically what she is saying is that it's very likely that Grinnell, what he's been working on, is they've obviously sniffed out that a lot of this mischief, particularly the Ukraine hoax and even before that in the Trump-Russia hoax, was coming through the NSC, the National Security Council. The people who work over the National Security Council are mostly CIA employees. That's where Sharamella worked. And he was probably one of the lead trumpeters over there, anti-Trumpers there, who was behind a lot of this stuff. We know he's up to his eyeballs in the Ukraine hoax and even the Russiagate hoax as well, as the parts of it that had their origins in Ukraine. And I believe he met twice with Chalupa. So Dyer makes out the argument in this story that she believes that the vast volume of documents that we did not get to see and probably won't get to see anytime soon are literally printed pages of various, probably dozens and dozens of people who were doing these 702 queries, who were doing unmaskings, and who were doing all these sorts of things, and they were using essentially reverse targeting. And she talks about the fact that the reason it's taking Grinnell so long to get this information, and she believes what's in a lot of them documents, is the actual keystroke by keystroke communications from dozens of people, corrupt people over at the NSC, as well as individuals working as private contractors for the government, likely contracted by the CIA, Mr. Potato Head, and others like that. So that's likely what a lot of those documents are. She talks about the fact that it's not just unmaskings, but also the 702 queries into the database, which was, there's a lot of that was being done over at the NSC by these keyboard warriors, social justice warriors, anti-Trumpers working against Trump at the NSC. And of course, we've been introduced to some of them already. She talks about, of course, this Analysis Corporation, TAC, which, as I said, Brennan was the president of from 2005 to 2009. And she says that he has contracted hundreds of millions of dollars to his old firm, and that the two other groups in the deep state that also use TAC, as well as other private contractors, to do a lot of this unmasking, a lot of this tapping into the NSA database, the 702 queries. It's not just 3 contractors. It's many more. And that the 2 agencies that use these guys a lot is also the FBI and the National Counterterrorism Center. She points out that Brennan set up these contracts in 2012 with the FBI and the National Counterterrorism Center, which essentially farmed out the work to these private contracting firms like TAC. And she is suggesting that Grinnell has likely identified these NSC keyboard warriors as well as private contractors and have captured their activities keystroke by keystroke. And that's what those documents, thousands of pages of documents, are. And she is pointing out that the reason these people are important and the reason that these people's names will not likely be released is, first of all, we wouldn't know who they are. They're just people who work for private defense contractors, who work for the government, work for the CIA, the FBI, counterintelligence, people like this. And some of these people are in the NSC, but they're generally people whose names we wouldn't know. They're not heavy players. They're just bureaucrats, anti-Trump bureaucrats. And what's important about these people, as she points out, is these are the people that you apply the pressure to. They are not high-profile people. They do not have Hollywood movie stars who will set up a GoFundMe for them. They do not have financial resources to defend themselves. They are not the type of people who are top players in the deep state who have a get-out-of-jail-free card. They do not have immunity to lie and break the law with impunity and never have to face repercussions. That's not the group of people we're talking about here. These are not the Brennans and the Comeys and the Clappers. These are just mid-level bureaucrats. They don't really have anything to gain by going to prison for the deep state and Brennan and Clapper and Comey and all the rest. So there'll be people who can very easily, you can put pressure on these people very easily. They will be more than happy to tell everything they can tell to keep themselves out of jail because they don't have the financial resources to even get one lawyer for one day in Washington, D.C. Those guys cost thousands of dollars a day. These are $50,000 a year people, maybe a little more, but these are not rich people. And these are not people who are going to go down for the deep state. They're just people following orders. They'll be most likely the people who will turn, people who will give up information. And it will all lead back to the deep state players. That's why they will be kept confidential for the time being. Of course, she also points out the fact that they were using this reverse targeting method, which has been coming up quite a bit. It's likely how they got Flynn, reverse targeting. So anyway, it's a very interesting story, and I just thought the same thing, when I first saw that briefcase full of documents. I thought, wow, it's going to be a major document dump. But then we get 3 pages. So obviously there's thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of documents that we don't know. But according to J.E. Dyer, former naval intelligence official who's been pretty accurate in the past, it's likely that those are the keystroke by keystroke plays of a bunch of contractors who are working for the deep state in their efforts to, and remember, we're being told by Fox News, reporter, that this is massive, that there are literally thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of illegal surveillance activities that went on via third-party contractors. Of course, we know that GCHQ now is coming under the gun because an article recently written in the UK essentially coming out and admitting, yeah, Brennan was subcontracting GCHQ to spy on Trump. So that's now making its way into the headlines. So that is the general take from J.E. Dyer, libertyunyielding.com. I highly recommend you go check that website out and visit it on a regular basis. I do. I look at it probably at least once a week. And a lot of good information there. Very, very solid. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and move on to the dumbass of the week. Birdwell, he's going to go with Judge Emmett Sullivan, Burisma Joe, and Commie Bernie. Dennis Shaw will go with Judge Sullivan. Youngblood will go with Judge Sullivan, Eric Holder, and Obama. Scott Johnson will go with Emmett Sullivan. Susan Lowell will go with Sullivan. Ruby's 200 will go with the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, for not allowing doctors to use the HCQ. Gene Alley will go with Sullivan, Obama, and Lindsey Graham. Perk Dog will go with Sullivan. Keith Fellows will go with Burisma Joe, ×3. Wendy Day will go with, that's her name, Wendy Day, I assume. Very nice name, Wendy Day. She will go with Emmett Sullivan, the judge, the bad judge, who thinks he's a prosecutor, and Burisma Joe. Lisa Bennett is going to go with Judge Sullivan. Joe Booty is going to go with Obama for his role in the coup plot. Peter James, our good friend in the Great Northwest. How you doing out there, Peter? He's going to go with Judge Sullivan, Obama, and the Democrat governors. Damian Hornet will go with, I believe, it says Emmert, but I believe he or she is talking about, assume he, is talking about Judge Sullivan. Stage Door Johnny is going to go with Judge Sullivan, Porklosi, and the pedo Joe Biden. Freddie Schaffer is going to go with Obama, and suggesting that once he is busted in the Spygate scandal, he will then admit he's actually Kenyan, so he can't be prosecuted. Well done, Freddie. That's exactly what he'll probably do. He'll even show up in his African garb. Thomas Archer is going to go with Judge Sullivan and Lancet. Lancet is a British medical journal which attacked President Trump. Ricky Ricardo is going to go with Governor Jay Inslee. I don't think Ricky likes Governor Inslee very much. Joey D, my man, just a little north of me here in Ohio. He's going to go with Obama and Judge Sullivan. Cards is going to go with Judge Sullivan. Jonathan Cassidy is going to go with Judge Sullivan. The Rotten Reverend Clinton and Joe Biden. Rotax is going to go with anyone who can't see the danger of the deep state. There's a little more to it in his comment. If you want to read that, it's pretty clever, pretty good, as usual. Well done, Rotax. Douglas. Yes, it's Douglas. Well, I can tell you that this week he did not go with any of the cruise ships or people who want to take a cruise. Nope. He went right for the jugular, right for Valerie Plame. Is she still in that race for Congress? Or have they figured her out yet? Valerie Plame, yeah, former CIA hack, married to another former deep state hack. I don't think we need anyone like Victoria or whatever her name is, Valerie Plame, anywhere near Washington. We're trying to get rid of people like her. Lindsey Graham and Vaccine Clapper. Yeah, Clapper. Oh, I'm not going to testify until there's a vaccine. Really? What if you get a cold? Will that keep you away? Because there's no cure for a cold either, Jim. You dumbass. Something tells me when you're called in front of a grand jury or charged with crimes, you'll find a way to get there. Jeanette Bateman is going to go with Sullivan. Governor Whitmer. That's another person. I do believe that Jeanette lives up there in Michigan, so she's got first-hand experience with Governor Whitmer. My guess is she's not a happy camper. I know a few people up in Michigan, and they pretty much hate Whitmer. And one of them is a Democrat. Lindsey Graham. Very good. Jeanette's got a pretty strong group there. Sullivan, Whitmer, and Lindsey Graham. That's three people that we could live without. Let's see. We have It's Angry Bob. It's Angry Bob. And he's angry at Judge Sullivan this week. JV is going to go with Judge Sullivan, Lindsey Graham, and Congress for that $3 trillion fake pandemic bill. Yeah, there's not very much in there having to do with relief for pandemic. The pandemic has much of it is just like a liberal wish list that will never actually come to fruition. I think it's just a campaign fundraising tool for Pelosi. I don't think she seriously thought this thing would get anywhere. Yeah, it passed the House, but 14 Democrats voted against it. But it did pass the House, but it's going nowhere in the Senate. I doubt very little of what's in that bill will get anywhere near the president's desk, and if it does, he'll veto it. He's not going to sign. He's not going to sign a bad bill right now because he doesn't need to. Good old school is going to go with Clapper. Jim, the unwitting idiot, Clapper. Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa says her dumbass of the week pick is her Navy veteran buddy who thinks Trump is killing black people with the coronavirus. Sorry to hear that, Mona. Very, very sorry to hear that. You have some crazy friends, my dear. Ohio Kimmy. Ohio Kimmy is going to go with Emmett Sullivan, the Obama administration's spy ring. That's a good way to put that. It's an Obama administration spy ring. Very well done. Makes it pretty simple and easy to understand. And, of course, the Democrats in Congress with their $3 trillion wish bill, which will never go anywhere. Rose Quartz, good old Rose, she's going to go with Judge Sullivan, who is a deep dumbass. Nice, Rose. Very, very nice. Yes, he is a deep dumbass. And it's going to get a lot deeper because I think Barr is going to climb up it and stretch out. So his deep ass is about to get a lot wider and deeper. And he'll, I mean, the thing about this, people, well, why is he doing it? Does he know how he's going to look so bad? No. To his group, he'll be regarded as a hero. He doesn't care how he looks to the average person, you or me. He doesn't care. He's playing to his audience. And that's the deep state coup plotters, the deep state, the left-wing nuts, the resistance, the social justice warriors. I mean, that's his audience. And he'll be held in high regard as a hero for his stupid stunt. Now, the rest of us, yes, we all think he's an asshole, and clearly he's going to piss Barr off. But he's playing the wrong game here. This is not going to end well for him on the big stage. But like I said, his friends and folks, they'll praise him highly for what he did. So that's where his thinking is. Alan Williams will go with Biden, and Biden. Sherman Lynn is going to go with Sullivan. And by the way, thanks, Sherman, for the tip on Liberty Unyielding, but I was a day ahead of you. Yeah, I saw the story when it popped up. And yes, I've cited that site, used that site many times in my TowerGate timeline, and have quoted other stories from that site. And yeah, it's definitely a good site to check out. Gets a little heady in the details for some people, but it's a very good site if you're into deep research. Like me. China News is going to go with Jimmy Kimmel and Joe Dementia and the Democratic Party. Yeah, they're kind of all one and the same, I think. I don't think there's any separation between the Democratic Party and the media. I think it's one entity at this point. So it looks like we are going to have winning first place this week, very easily, actually, walking away with it with no problem, Judge Emmett Sullivan. Judge Emmett Sullivan is our dumbass of the week. It looks like we have finishing in second place. We have, I got the numbers here. I didn't add them up. I usually add these up first. Looks like it's going to be Burisma Joe. Burisma Joe coming in second place for dumbass of the week. And it looks like third place is going to be the Democrats' $3 trillion wish bill that will never actually make it through the Senate. And even if it did, Trump would never sign it. So there you go. Judge Solomon, Burisma Joe, and the Democrats' $3 trillion wish bill, which will never, ever become law. Thank you very much for tuning in. Be sure to go over and check out that article at Liberty Unyielding. And we'll be back tomorrow with a full edition of TowerGate. And I'm sure there'll be much more to come. Tomorrow morning is Sunday morning. We don't really get a lot of document releases or things like that on the weekends. Usually those all come on a Friday night for some reason. Friday nights are good nights for document dumps. But things are so heating up right now that you could have some weekend stuff happen. But these guys are probably working 7 days a week. I mean, Durham's office, I know they're working 7 days a week. Grinnell probably is in there 7 days a week. I mean, he's all about it. So we may get some documents, but you also have the Sunday morning, you get the Sunday morning programs, and so we usually comment on that. But I expect that this upcoming week or two, the next week or two, I do expect we are going to get some fairly serious document dumps. And I think we're within about 6 to 8 weeks now of Durham starting to indict people. I think, as I've said before, I think he'll do it before the Democratic Convention. And so that's about 2 months away. So, yeah, so we'll just keep watching, and I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good night. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you. Bye.